everyone. Welcome to the YouTube channel of Life and More. Today we have with us Mr. Anurag Anand, who is a corporate professional, but also an author and an artist, a painter. And he's all rolled into one. How he manages his work and his passions, that is what we'll talk about today. So, currently, not currently, is an exhibition of his artworks begins at All India Fine Arts and Craft Society on October 13th. The exhibition is titled Soulful Sojourn. So, welcome, Anurag.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on your channel and glad to be here talking with you.
Yeah, pleasure is all mine. So, talk to us about take us through your upcoming show.
Sure.
Like, how many works are there, and what
Mm.
is this idea behind the title, giving this title?
Sure. So the title, as you mentioned, is Soulful Sojourn. So it's basically um, a trip or a journey into the human soul. The idea essentially comes from the fact that when we look at art, there's a very clear distinction between something that's pure aesthetic and made for display versus art. And when it comes to art, people the meaning that's attributed to art is often deep and sometimes deeper than what a normal person in the normal course of life would want to comprehend. So that makes a bit of a disconnection between the wider audience and those extremely deep artworks that are created. However, the reality is that as human beings, yes, we think about spirituality, we think about deeper things in life, but not always. There are those
Yeah.
small moments that we learn from, that we smile from, or we emote to, be it anger, frustration, whatever emotions. But these emotions keep happening every day, every hour of our lives. And that is what to the common people is way more relatable. So, Soulful Sojourn essentially is my attempt at expressing myself in a manner that's way more relatable to people who are not necessarily very deep into art understanding. There are three separate segment series that I've worked on, and the total number of artworks would be close to about 45 that you'll see on display.
Mhm. So when did you begin making this particular series? Like 45 works is a huge number. It can't be done in a matter of months, or is it?
No, in fact, I started working on it last year itself. So it's between last year and this year that I've completed these works.
Okay.
Also, as an artist, like when you're starting work on a series, you're not really looking at an exhibition or you have an exhibition in mind. It's not like that. So when I started
Mhm.
working last year, it was one area that I explored, that led to another, that led to another, and so eventually I had a collection of artworks which were in the similar space, yet they could be clearly differentiated. So that's why three different series, as I mentioned
But the
in the.
title, you had thought about it. You thought about it that this will be related to the soul, a journey of the soul
Um,
that you had in mind.
so a little later, maybe just to give a wild number, if the total number of
Mhm.
artworks are about 45, whenever I would have reached about halfway, then I
Mhm.
knew where I was heading, and that's where perhaps I
Yeah.
started thinking a little more on what the overall exhibition is going to be like. But initially,
Mhm.
you're more concerned about that particular piece. What is it that you want to communicate in that particular artwork? And that's how you sort of go about the journey.
Okay. So what inspires you to paint?
So painting is a very interesting medium of expression. Like you mentioned, I also write, which is again a medium of expression. But words are very definitive. each word has a defined meaning in the dictionary, and that then defines your scope, right? You can play around with the construct of sentences, how you're using words there, which words are you using, but then there are boundaries. When it comes to art, you really have no boundaries. You can express yourself the way you want, with the colors that you want, in the manner that you want, in a style that you want. So that's one uniqueness about art. The other is, of course, it's way more instant in terms of seeing the output. So if you're writing, for example, a novel, you're probably writing for months, at times more than a year also, and it takes another year or so for the book to come out. So there's a long gestation period. However, if you're working on an art piece, uh, your immediate expressions is what goes into it, and you see the output much quicker. So that's basically what I view my art practice as.
So you were always interested in art. When did you
uh,
begin like painting?
okay, so I used to doodle. So all right, right from my school, all my notebooks had like the last few pages completely doodled. So it was something that I was keen in. I used to do cartoons. I used to create those characters and small comic strips around them when I was a kid. A few portraits of family members, but that was all out of pure passion. I never knew that I was going to take it a step further ever in my life. Uh, so I did not really learn, but it was something which was inherent, and that was always there, and I would continue it in a very under the radar sort of a manner, which is what I had been doing for a long time. But then it just kept growing like a plant. You plant the seed, and then it finds its own path. So a few years back, I decided,
Mhm.
I had collected enough works to sort of exhibit them, and more importantly, I had the confidence to take them out there and expose myself and my practice for people to view and comment upon. So that's where the journey, so to say, as an artist began.
Mhm. So do you have any like favorite artist whom you follow, or it all comes from within?
Um, I follow, so art, like wherever I'm traveling, the first thing I try and figure out which are the galleries, the museums to visit, because it's a fascinating world once you go deep into it. Really, sky is the limit. So there are a lot of artists that I follow. It's difficult to say uh, one or two. Like in writing, you like somebody's writing style which resonates with you because you're engaging uh, at a more left brain sort of a level. However, when it comes to art, it's about what connects with you then on that piece. And it could be an emerging artist whose work really appeals to you, or masters, of course. They come with that legacy, the name, and then you are bound to engage that much more with those creations. But several artists, Indian and international, who've fascinated me, and whose works I just admire wherever I see them.
Can you name some?
Yeah, so India, of course, would be the obvious ones, your Souzas and Razas of the world. Um,
Mhm.
um, Obviously, Ravi Verma with his um, very,
Portraits.
yeah, like he's literally created the visuals for our mythology for us. So all of them, and then if you go westwards, of course, from a Picasso to a Van Gogh to, and then that's the T-shirt that I'm wearing, if you see. So yeah, multiple artists actually.
And what's your favorite medium to paint?
I like to work with oil, um, because that's something that gives you more freedom and flexibility as an artist. However, because of work compulsions, the drying time that is needed for the layering that you need to do, there are practical, technical reasons because of which I actually end up working more with acrylic. Uh, but I like to experiment with mediums, but acrylic is the one that I work the most with.
Okay. Watercolors, I see many artists are really into watercolors these days.
Yeah, so
What's
as I
your
said,
opinion on that? Mm.
um, so mediums, again, like, as an artist, I don't think it's right to really wed yourself to any particular medium, because there are
Okay.
different things that it's almost like, uh, when you're creating a poster or a visual thing, that different fonts that you use for different parts of that poster, right? Because that works better with that kind of a text, whether it's a headline, it's a subheading and whatnot. Similarly, for an artist, the medium that you should be using is a function of what is it that you want to express, what is it that you're creating. And there, obviously, pastels cannot replace, watercolor cannot replace, charcoal cannot
Yeah.
replace, etc, etc. So,
Mm.
personally, I like to work with all mediums, but yeah, there are some really fascinating um, works in watercolors that are coming up. Like, I recently had the opportunity to view Paresh Mathi's series that he's done with watercolors, and that's fascinating. There's enough work in all mediums. There's just a lot of art and not enough time in our lives to admire it. So that's how I would put it.
Okay, okay. And now we go to your books. So you're also an author, and I see you've written quite a number of books. So, and across different genres. So, how do you get time? You're a corporate professional, you paint, and then you write. How do you get time to do so much of work like in 24 hours?
uh and that's a question, believe you me, I've answered, I don't
Mm.
know how many dozen times. uh
Okay.
but see, it's almost an
Because people
yeah.
like us, no, we wonder how do you get time? We are
No,
always
so
like short of time.
there's a simple answer and there's a slightly complex answer to it. The simple one, which
Mhm,
I tell my colleagues or friends who ask me this question,
mm,
many of them
mhm,
have different interests. So some of them are, for example, fitness freaks who can't go to sleep unless they've hit the gym for an hour. So different people have different passions, and I end up asking them that, how do you find that 1 hour per day to go to the gym? And they're like, I
mhm,
don't know, we don't have to find time, it just happens, we
mhm,
have to do it, it's a part
mhm,
of our routine. So I was like,
mhm.
that's exactly why perhaps I'm not as fit as you, and why I'm able to take out the time. So it's, if you're
Mhm,
passionate about something, you don't really need to take out time, time finds itself. That's the simple one. The slightly complicated one is, of course, it needs a very able support system to enable you to do all of this. And when I say support system, I mean a support system at work. So understanding and appreciative and encouraging colleagues, um, uh, an organization that encourages you to take on creative pursuits, a boss who doesn't think that if you're holding an art exhibition, you're not really doing the work that you need to do at work. So that's there. Then at home, your wife, your kids, they need to understand that whether it's a weekend or an evening and you're pursuing something which is integral to your passion, then you need to be left alone. It's so that understanding, because you're ultimately taking away time from somewhere. It could be some of the time that you could have devoted to them. So them being understanding and encouraging is extremely critical to be able to do this.
Yeah. So busy with your own thing, like your office and your passions, don't you, like, as a person, you feel guilty of not taking your family or your wife's time or kids' time or your parents' time to involve yourself in that?
So as I said, at times I do. That's the honest answer. However, I think after a certain amount of time, you find a sweet spot with everybody. You find a space that works for everybody. And like, as far as I'm concerned, I try and spend as much time outside of my preoccupations with the family that I can. And
Mhm.
on their part, they try and engage with me in my space. So if I have an exhibition coming, you will see on the days that they can, my wife would be there, my child would be there, my family members would be there. So they find uh, time within their own schedules to come and visit me in my space as well. So that's how the synergy sort of works.
And about your books, like if I ask you, tell me a day in your life, how do you, is it like, do you have a dedicated time for writing or for painting? Office work, of course, there has to be a dedicated time. Or do you work in sports, like whenever you feel like doing it, you do?
uh, Again, out of compulsion, it ends up being in spurts, because as you said, work is and has to
Has
remain your
to.
number one priority.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and work requires travel. There are projects sometimes that really consume you, and you don't have the mental bandwidth to do something else on the side. So work becomes the primary, it becomes the sun of the solar system, and the other
Mhm.
planets, then you have to make sure that they revolve around the sun. So
Revolve
that's,
around. Mm.
yeah, so that's how I try and work it. If I'm
Mhm.
writing, then sometimes my art takes a bit of a backseat, and
Mhm.
vice versa, because once you're consumed in a particular creation, then it's difficult to put that on pause, pull yourself out, work on something else, and go back. So that I try and
Mhm.
not do. If I'm writing something, no matter how much time it takes, I try and finish that. Only use art as a recreation in between if I have to, but not pick
Okay.
up a serious work in that space as well. So that's
Mhm.
how I try and differentiate.
Okay, okay. Now we go back to your earlier life a little. Tell me about where were you born and brought up? Tell me about your parents and your education. And since you said that you were interested in art since the very beginning, like you were doodling and making creative pieces, didn't you ever think of pursuing art full time?
Okay, so I think I'll try and answer the second question along my journey as I talk through it. So I was born
Yeah.
uh, in a village in Bihar.
Mhm.
My father, he's now retired, but he was a government doctor back then, and
Mhm.
my mother was a homemaker. So my father used to be posted in different places because of his job, and Bihar, and especially in a village in Bihar, we didn't have the sort of education facilities or infrastructure that my parents wanted to give me. So at a very young age, I think at about 4.5 years of age, I was sent to a hostel in Darjeeling,
Oh, that's
and
a small age.
it was, and um, I have frightening stories from that time that my grandparents have shared, my parents share, because I was the only child in the joint family, and having to send such a small pampered child to a hostel was a huge effort on their part as well. So in class fourth, I moved to Delhi to DPS Mathura Road, uh, and that's where I was always interested in writing. I used to write for the school magazine. Art, as I said, was more doodling and doing things on my own at my own time. I remember a specific incident. So as I was mentioning, I used to do a lot of cartoons and cartoon strips and caricatures. And back then we had, I think I would have been in class sixth, seventh or something. We had this newspaper in education program where you got a newspaper from the school side. And
Mhm.
the newspaper, I saw a small ad of a correspondence course for cartooning or caricature drawing. I really wanted to do it. And the cost was, I remember, some 600 rupees. But I was staying in a hostel, And of course, I didn't have 600 rupees on me. And I was so scared that 600 rupees for me then was a lot of money, a humongous amount
Yeah.
of money.
Mhm.
And I honestly did not have the courage to ask my parents for it. I did not do that course, and that remains uh, a big sort of a weight on my heart till this date. Uh, and my parents tell me, when I speak to them, they tell me, you should have told us. But sometimes
Yeah.
as a child, you have these things that you're cooking up in your own
Ah,
head. It was
yeah.
one of those things, and I never ended up sort of taking up art. Also in
Mhm.
school, I was a very I used to be in sports as well. Um there were multiple extracurriculars that I was a part of. So art
Mhm.
was one of the classes that was really considered as a free period, if you know what I mean. So
Okay. Yeah,
even
yeah.
the formal education that the school allowed you to have in art is not
Mhm.
something that I really um, utilized or leveraged. It was more
Mhm.
my own passion that kept me doing it on the side and carrying it along.
Mhm. And then you, after the school?
School, then college from Delhi University. I did my economics honors. Then I went on to do my
Mhm.
MBA, and
Mhm.
then I started working. Work took me to different parts of the country, from Kashmir to Gujarat to Mumbai to Gurgaon, of
Mhm.
course. And now I live in Gurgaon and I work in Gurgaon, and I live here with
Mhm.
my small family, my
Mhm.
wife and my daughter.
Mhm. So when did the paintings you said a couple of years back you actually decided now is the time to exhibit?
Yeah,
What about writing? When did you begin writing per se?
sure. So, writing again, it's an interesting story. Like I
Mhm.
said, I was writing for my school magazine. I was writing small couplets, so that had always been there with me. And I think that came from the fact that I love to read. So from Chacha Chaudhary and Nagaraj comics to anything I could lay my hands on, I loved reading.
Mhm.
Uh, so it was after my MBA, I was posted in Gujarat, and this was right, I think, the first few years after I completed my MBA and my initial job.
Mhm.
So I had no friends there. The average age in office was about a decade or more higher than mine. Uh,
Okay.
it was a dry state. The city where I was in just had a single multiplex which used to play Gujarati movies most of the time. So I had, although I was working really hard, but the weekends that I had were purely blank. There was nothing to be done. Now, the choice that I had was I could either waste it and while away time, or I could use it productively. And that is where I started writing. I just started writing again with no specific end objective in mind. And I started writing my own experiences of life. Eventually, when I had a sufficient number of words written down, I was chatting up with a publisher, a Gujarati publisher, and in the conversation there, they just mentioned that they were looking at foraying into English writing, and that was the time that Chetan Bhagat had really opened up Indian writing in English, and there were a lot of readers who were looking at Indian content. So I said, okay, I have something I've written, not in the fiction space, but if you want to take a look, I can share it with you. I shared it with them. They liked what they read, and they were the ones who actually brought my first
Okay.
book to life. And when I saw
Mhm.
that book in bookshelves, when I saw people spending money to buy it, and more importantly, spending their time to read and engage with it, then I knew this was something which was there to stay and it was not going to disappear. So then the journey just continued after that.
Okay. And which year was that?
This was, I think, 2003,
2003. And 20
28.
years, you've written quite a number of books and across different genres, I said. So, which is
Yeah, so
your favorite genre and why?
Okay, for once, I just got worried that you're asking me to choose a favorite book out of the 13 that I've written.
I'll
That
come to
would
that.
be.
Come to that. Come to that.
The favorite genre. So I've written a total of 13 books, and the 14th one is slated to come out later this year. Uh, the genre I really like to write is historical fiction. So I've written two books around the life of the yesteryear courtesan Amrapali, which are The Legend of Amrapali and Birth of the Bastard Prince. And the next one, which is coming out, The Crimson Throne of Mahoba, that is also a work of historical fiction. So that's a space that I like because we have a very rich heritage of history, mythology, all of that, and a lot of it is now disappearing fast. So there are two lenses because of which, as an author, I want to really delve in that space. One is the fact that the mystique, uh, the suspense that our mythology, our characters from our history and mythology, they hold. I haven't seen very many civilizations in the world, barring one or two, to have that richness. Second, with all the globalization, technology, all of that is happening to the coming generations, we need to create and put content out there for them to be able to consume it eventually. So right now, whatever content is there is either very dated or it is in a form that people are no longer consuming it. So that's where the need to really revive a lot of these stories with a modern touch is something I feel is the responsibility of the authors of today. And so that's a space that I really enjoy being a part of.
But historical fiction is not an easy thing to write. You need a lot of research in that. So how do
True.
you?
So that's exactly why out of the 14 books that I've written, only three are historical fiction. Others are all contemporary fiction because, like you rightly said, when it comes to contemporary fiction, I can think of a
You can
story,
write,
I can break down the story, and I can write it
yeah,
like right now
write
because
it.
once the
Yeah.
scene is there, I don't need to go anywhere to imagine it.
Mm,
But
yeah.
when writing historical fiction, there are two major differences. One, as you said, the research. So if you're picking up a
Mm,
character from history, you cannot
mm,
take poetic license and deviate to a point where the character becomes unrecognizable. So you have to
yeah.
stay in that space, so you need to know that space.
Mm,
And second, of course, when you're writing, then also you need to really mentally go into that era because then your descriptions, everything that you write, every word, the dialogues, the
mm,
way people engage with each other, what they're eating, what they're wearing, what they're seeing, all of that has to
mm,
be set in that period. So
yeah.
mentally, you need to really detach yourself, move to a different era, and write.
Mm,
So it's difficult, and for these books, I have done extensive research. In fact, Vaishali is the place where Amrapali was.
yeah.
She lived. She was the Nagarvadhu of
Mm,
Vaishali, and
mm,
I went there. I went to the there's an ASI museum there where there are artifacts even from her era which are there. There is the coronation tank which still exists in Vaishali. So I
mm,
went, I saw all of that myself. I read everything that was available uh, from that period about that person, about that character, in Hindi,
mm,
in English, uh, whatever work that Bollywood had done on that character. I watched that. There's a long period when you're just absorbing. You're absorbing the character, the nuances of the character, the time, and I did all of that, and that is when I actually picked up the pen metaphorically and started writing. So that's the process for historical fiction. A tedious one,
yeah.
but
That's quite,
happy one.
yeah, time consuming one.
It is. It is.
So, if I may ask you, do you ever suffer from like a creative block, a writer's block or a artist block, where you want to do something and you cannot do, you're not able to bring out what is there in your mind?
No, quite honestly, and this is a controversial statement that I'll make. I think
Mhm.
a writer's block is really a fanciful,
Mhm.
dreamy sort of a statement that we writers have created.
Mhm.
Yes, there are times that uh, you don't think you're getting the right flow, or you're being able to write to the level that you know you can, or you just don't want to write a particular thing or a particular work that you're working on. uh, so that can happen because that's only human, but that doesn't mean that there's a block, there's a wall in front of you which is prohibiting you from writing. So if I'm working on a story, for example, and there's a time when I don't want to go back to it, I just want a break. That break could come in the form of watching a series. It could come in the form of sketching, painting something, or it could even come in the form of writing poetry. That's fine. And I can go back to what I was writing after that break, or tomorrow, or the day after. It's about how you manage those human reactions of a creator's mind, rather than saying that, oh, now I've hit a block and I don't know what to do and I'm doomed. So I think it's something which, as a creator, as a writer, you need to learn to navigate, rather than to give it more importance than it deserves.
And do you have a favorite spot? Many writers, they have a particular area. Like one author told me that she goes to a park and sits on the bench to write. She cannot write anywhere else.
Yeah, we've
Somebody
had,
told me that they
there are famous
tell me
authors
about
who
yours.
there are famous authors who write in a bathtub, who've written in a bathtub. So there are multiple stories there, but unfortunately, my writing process is not so dreamy and fanciful. I write where I can, when I can. So I have written on flights, uh, in the airport lounges, um, wherever I can. At
Whenever you
home,
get a idea, you put it down.
exactly. And whenever you have time. So if you have a 6 hours of a transit in an airport, and you want to write, you can write there, right? So at home also, uh, depends on what time of the night or day I'm writing. There are times that I do have a desk, but I'm not always using that. There are times that I'm on the couch writing, or sprawled on the bed writing. So it's not a very uh, it's more the the when, the what, which dictates where I write, rather than the other way around.
And if I ask you, what, like an upcoming corporate professional who's just into a job and not wants to pursue like the passions, the interest he or she has, what would you advise that person? How to go
I think
about it?
it's very important to keep your passions alive.
Mhm.
uh, the first thing that I would say is for them to let go of the mental inhibitions. So oftentimes we think that, oh, if I do this, what will people at work think? What will my boss think? Will they think that I'm taking this time out from my work time? How will it play out when it comes to my career advancement? Will it have any negative impact there? So these are the things, again, this is like those mental things that you weave in your own head, which I did when I wanted to join that course that I spoke to you about, and
Mhm.
you never come out of it. But the reality
Mhm.
is that once you believe in people, you give them a chance, more often than not, they really live up to your expectations. So
Or
go
maybe
out
it's
there.
believe in yourself.
true, believe in yourself, and also the people around, because people are not all
mm,
that bad. If you do
mm,
something good, majority of
mm,
the people around you will appreciate and encourage you rather than trying to pull your
mm,
leg. The Indian cockroach story we've
mm,
all heard, but that's just a
mm,
story, it's a myth, or
mm,
maybe it's a dated reality today. At least
mm,
from my experience, if you want to do something positive, there are more people out there who want to encourage you rather than those who want to pull you back. So just let go of your mental inhibitions, take the
mm,
first step, and definitely follow your passions. Because
mm,
one of my worst fears is when I'm 70, 80 years old, sitting on a beach side. At that point in time, I shouldn't have a lot many regrets, because
yeah.
then I'll have no way of going back in life and making amends. So
Mm.
don't do that to yourself. Give everything that you want to give a shot, give it a shot.
Okay. And I'm so glad to hear that there are more people supporting you than pulling you back. Because most of the people, they say that people are not good and they always want to hinder your progress. And this is a different take I'm hearing. It's a very refreshing thing to listen to.
uh, Thanks, but yeah, that's a reality. Sometimes, see, we human beings are conditioned to crib, right? We love
Mm,
saying that our colleagues are idiots, and boss doesn't know a thing about what I'm doing,
mm,
etc, etc. We just love to do that. That's a part of our nature. But it
mm,
doesn't mean necessarily that our actions mirror what we speak, because of that
mm,
natural sort of a habit of ours. Give people a
mm.
chance, they will come out
Prove to be good.
positive. Yeah.
Yeah. So, are you into spiritualism? Do you read spirituality books or
I'll,
are a
I'll,
part of
I'll-
any mandal or something?
no, I do read a little bit of spirituality. Um, Not extensive though, and mandals and all I haven't really explored too much in my life yet.
No guru?
Um, so I consider my dad as my guru. I've taken a diksha from a guru, but that's not so much in the spiritual space as it is in the religious space. Uh, so I won't call myself as a very heavily spiritual person. Yeah, but I do believe in there being an ultimate power which really keeps the world go around, and I try and do what I can uh, to really remain in the good books of that power. So that's the space of spirituality I operate in.
Yeah. So now I'll ask you the question that you were dreading. Which is your favorite book? Your own, from among your own books.
Very difficult, but I'll still take a shot, because usually I think mothers are accused of favoring their younger
Children.
children more. So I will also go for my latest one, which is yet to come out. It's called The Crimson Throne of Mahoba, and it's
Mm,
based around the Chandel dynasty, who had their seat in Mahoba, and it's the same dynasty which is responsible for building the Khajuraho temples. Uh, so we know Khajuraho temples, what they stand for. We've heard in bits and pieces about the Chandel dynasty, but they also had a lot of warriors in that dynasty. Uh, in particular, Ala and Udal were two brothers who like really they were as big as Prithviraj Chauhan was in Delhi back then. They fought
okay.
several wars. They even defeated Prithviraj Chauhan on numerous occasions. Till he finally vanquished them. Till date, there's an Allah temple in central India, and people pray to Allah. There's a form of
Okay.
folk singing called Allah Gaiki, which has inspired numerous Bollywood songs, in movies like Onkara, those high energy songs. Uh,
Okay.
and again, not many people. If you go out and you ask people how many people have heard of Ala and Udal, you will not get too many yeses.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a story, and then there's not too much of written material available around them as well,
Mhm.
because it's all folklore and then folk songs which sort of talk about their heroics and what they did. Obviously, a hugely exaggerated sort of a version. So what I've done is I've picked up that story, added a lot of meat from my own imagination to create the Crimson Throne of Mahoba. So I'm really excited to see how the readers respond to it.
Okay. When is it coming out?
Later this year, I've been told by about November, I think it should be releasing.
Okay. And are you, now that this exhibition is like almost done, this book is also done, are you working on something else in the exhibition? Do you have anything, any plan in your mind about a
So
book
yeah,
or a
so you usually there's a huge gestation period for a lot of these things. In fact, the manuscript after this one is also ready, and in fact,
cha?
just last week I've signed up with my publisher, so that is yet to go into editing. That's a work of contemporary fiction, a
Mhm.
geopolitical thriller actually, but
Mhm.
that's gone to my publisher now. So maybe in about a year's time, that will come out. The exhibition after this one, I know I'll have a solo at Habitat Center in April. So that's
Okay.
something which I again finalized only this week actually. So you keep working towards these things, and there's certain works that you're doing when it comes to painting. There are a couple of storylines that you're toying with when it comes to writing. So it's a continuous process. It's almost like a conveyor belt, a production conveyor belt, where the different things at different stages of production
Happening.
at any point in
Yeah.
time. True,
Yeah. It is continually happening.
that's right.
So amid all this, your life as a corporate professional, which I'm sure is very hectic and very time consuming, your life as an artist, your life as an author, are there any other interests that you pursue?
Family and friends.
Okay.
So I won't call it an interest. They're the lifeblood of
Mm,
life, but
mm,
I just love spending time with my little one who's 11 now,
mhm,
with my friends whenever we get, because now at this stage of life everybody is busy with their own lives, so that little
mm.
time that you're able to take out and spend with each other is precious. So that's something I like doing. Of course, these days with the OTT platforms really invading your lives, uh, that's another thing that consumes a bit of my time. Off late, sports. So India just completed the tally of 100 Asian Games
100.
medals
Yeah.
today. I have
Yeah.
been following that. So since the morning, also I was watching the
Mm,
women's kabaddi team take their gold, and the wrestlers sweat it out. So sports is again something, and tomorrow onwards we have obviously the big one, the ICC World Cup starting. So
the
that
World
that
Cup.
also
Yeah.
takes up a lot of my time.
Okay. Okay. So that brings us to the end of this session. And thank you so much, Anurag, for talking to us and giving me some bits of knowledge and, and about life. And
Thank
we
you
wish you
so
all
much.
the best with your exhibition, with your books, and all your
Thank you.
upcoming
Thank you.
ventures.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And what I really loved about the conversation was it was absolutely free flowing, and one
Yeah,
question to the other, and it was delightful talking to you. The exhibition is
thank you so
on
much.
at the IFACS gallery
Yeah,
from 13th to 19th of
13 to
October,
19.
and
Mhm.
I will be there on most of the days. So you and your viewers, whoever wants to drop by, please do. It will be delightful
Sure.
to talk about
Yeah,
my works with you.
sure. It will be lovely to get in touch with you personally. Thank you so much.
Thank you.